blitzkrieg. As the Germans advanced, they sent thousands of refugees westward, slowing down the Allies. Then, to the south, the French had left the Ardennes, an area full of hills and forests, pretty underdefended because they thought it was naturally impenetrable. Well, the Germans were about to penetrate it with everything they had. They smashed 50 Wehrmacht divisions through and
also, Germans had a bit of a cheat code. What's up, team? Today we're gonna watch World War II oversimplified documentary about the World War II. Yeah, so World War II, for people who don't know, was the biggest conflict in 20th century and probably the biggest conflict of known humankind. So, estimated people who died during World War II was around 50 million people. So let's dive into the documentary.
It's 1902. A young man by the name of Benito Mussolini moves from Italy to Switzerland to avoid military service. He gets big in... Now, with young man, but further ado. It's 1902. A young man by the name of Benito Mussolini moves from Italy to Switzerland to avoid military service. He gets big into socialism, working for trade unions, writing for socialist newspapers, advocating
I didn't know that, by the way.
Monarchies, the whole shebang. This gets him in a bit of trouble with the Swiss police, so he gets arrested, sent back to Italy, set free, returns to Switzerland, is arrested again, goes back to Italy again, quits his military service after previously avoiding it, and then after a brief stint as an elementary school teacher, he finally returns to work as an avid socialist. His speeches and journalistic abilities made him famous among Italian socialists. He was anti-war, so
Benito had the skill to talk very confident, and he was the one of the pioneers of dictatorship, in my opinion, of course.
Libya in 1910, he rioted
in modern world.
Then World War I came along, and once again he protested Italy's involvement. But then he thought, wait a minute, this war could bring about the social climate needed to overthrow European monarchies and bring about the socialist revolution everywhere. And suddenly he was pro-war, but his fellow socialists didn't like his new pro-war stance, so they kicked him out of the party. So then he said, you know what? I'm done with socialism. We need something new, not based on class divisions tearing us apart, but based on unity through nationality. We'll conquer the Mediterranean and reunite all Italian peoples just like the days of the Roman Empire. I'll call it fascismo, and it will guide the Italian nation to greatness. That's all well and good, Mr. Mussolini, but what kind of haircut am I giving you? Let's go.
Man.
Bold.
Man, listen, I think that Mussolini, to get to the power, he was ready to do whatever it takes to. If it takes to be a socialist, he's gonna become a socialist. If it takes to be a fascist, he's gonna become one. It doesn't matter. He would do it like he would do anything to get the power.
Italy had been on the winner's side in World War I, and they hoped they were going to get a lot out of it, but in the end, they only got a little, and they felt cheated. On top of that, a bad economy and weak governments meant that the Italian people were a little unhappy. So when Mussolini came along and said that he could fix everything, his fascist movement gained a lot of support. In 1922, he went to the king and said, make me prime.
Yeah, it reminds me of the situation with the Germany. Germany after World War I had to give up their territory, their army, and basically they were feeling really miserable, you know, not proud of their nation at all. And Hitler, one of the things that he did, he made them feel proud of Germany again, you know, made a Germany great again, something like that.
Or I'll make me prime minister. And the king said, you and what army? This army.
So basically these people who rise to the power, they understood the situation, what's happening in the world at the moment.
Dictator. Next up, Germany. Germany had been on the loser's side, and they got absolutely wrecked by the Treaty of Versailles. They lost territory, had to demilitarize the Rhineland, had to reduce their army to just 100,000 men, couldn't have an air force, had to pay the Allies a huge amount of money that it didn't have. And
inflation, they had huge inflation also.
To walk into the center of Berlin, pick out any German they wanted, and spank the hell out of them.
I didn't know that one.
But it helps you understand how all of this felt to Germans. On top of that, a bad economy and weak governments meant that when a small angry man with a silly mustache came along and said that he could fix everything, the German people loved him. Hitler had been a soldier during World War I, and he was crazy.
Yeah, Hitler, when he was coming up, and also when he was already the main guy in Germany, he was telling all the time that he was a soldier in World War I. He knows the struggles of the ordinary people, you know, and it played a big role how people felt about him also.
Patriotic, and nobody was madder than him about Germany's humiliation. He helped start a new political party, and in 1923 attempted a march on Munich.
Yeah, just take a look how hard was the struggles for Hitler when he was rising to the power. Yeah, like he could quit like a long time ago. Like when this march happened, basically he got shot at. I'm not sure if he got wounded, but I know that Hermann Goering got wounded, and after that he became like a morphine addict. But he could say, and after this like march, he got in jail also, and he could say, "Oh no, can do it. I cannot do it. I'm just gonna quit," you know. But he continued to carry on, carry on. In the end, he received what he wanted because he was persistent and he didn't give up. Success story, man.
With his boys. And then he got arrested. But his popularity grew and grew, and in 1933, the president made him chancellor. He believed he was Germany's great destined savior, and he went full megalomaniac, establishing a dictatorship with himself at its center. Europe had fascist.
Yeah, there was big pressure on this president.
Hitler and Mussolini had a lot of the same ideas. More importantly, they had the same enemies, and they started to get along. Anyone else want to be friends? Franco? No? You good? I do.
Yeah.
Who's that?
You
It's
good?
Japan, and they've taken over
Good,
northern
my man.
China. Let's rewind a bit. Japan had isolated itself from the rest.
Yeah, talking about Japan, Japan was like not very happy that other big countries like Great Britain, America, and mostly Great Britain, America, France had the colonies. I'm not sure about America, but they had colonies and they had the resources, and Japan lacked those resources, and they wanted to have a piece of it, the piece of the big pie. But of course, the big brothers, the big countries, they look at Japan and said, "My man, you won't get nothing from this."
The world for over 200 years.
This is the
Until
reason why
Americans
they
showed up and
started
said, "You're
their
gonna
like
trade with us, and you're gonna like it."
conquest.
Then the Western powers imposed a bunch of unequal treaties, meaning Japan's economy was bust. They also had no natural resources, so they decided to go get some. They went to war with China to gain a sphere of influence over Korea, and they took a bunch of China's stuff. But then the West said, "Hey, cut that out." And since Japan couldn't take on the West, they said, "Okay, I guess we'll just go home." Wait a minute, what are you doing? Taking advantage of a weakened China and setting up spheres of influence. But I was the one who weakened them. We know. And you guys didn't let me have anything. We know. That seems unfair. We don't think so.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So
They
Japan
they
thought,
just
"Screw
didn't
this,"
care.
and went to war with Russia and stunned everyone by actually winning. Then they fully annexed Korea, but they didn't stop there. In World War I, they took Germany's colonies and islands in Asia. And then in an incident that was maybe staged by the Japanese army, a bomb blew up a Japanese train in Manchuria, giving them an excuse to launch an invasion and take over. So here's the situation.
The
Nazi
war in
Germany,
China
fascist
was
Italy,
just
and Japan all believe they're
terrible.
racially superior, all feel hostility
Man,
towards the Allies.
such
all
a
want to
lot of
militarize
cruelties
and take over.
happening. One of the cruelty was that in Manchuria, Japanese set up a laboratory where they were testing how the people will react to different kinds of tortures. And basically there was every kind of torture happening there, like every kind of torture, guys. Check it out. It's the documentary is called Squad 786 or some 768, something like that. Check it out. It's worth to watch.
Stuff. And so they did. Let's start with Germany. Hitler hated the Treaty of Versailles, and now he was ready to begin undoing it. In complete violation of the treaty, the first Luftwaffe squadrons were set up, conscription was introduced, and he pimped up his army. The Allies did nothing. Then Hitler sent his army back into the demilitarized Rhineland, giving orders to immediately retreat if the Allies showed up. The Allies did nothing. With his military re-strengthened, he could now move on to step 2. He wanted to
Take over
rapidly
the
increase
world,
the
yeah.
Aryan
Nice plan,
population,
man.
And to do so, he needed Lebensraum. Or in other words, he would have to take over the world. But for now, a good portion of Europe would do, and he began eyeing up his neighbors. The Allies finally started to get worried, so they implemented a fairly useless diplomatic strategy called appeasement, and it went a little something like this. Hitler would say, "I want that thing," and the Allies would say, "You can't have that thing." "Okay, you can have that thing, but no more." "I want that thing." And repeat. In 1938, Hitler's army marched into Austria and just took it.
Yeah,
with
just
no
took
resistance.
over.
Boom. This is Germany now. Next, he demanded to be given the Sudetenland, an area of Czechoslovakia with many ethnic Germans. The Allies held a meeting with Hitler in Munich and said, "Look, we're going to give you what..." "Hang on. This meeting is about my territory. Shouldn't I come to the meeting too?"
Literally nobody asked the government of Czechoslovakia, do they agree about giving away the territory to the Germany or not. Nobody cared. Literally, the Germany, Italy, France, and United Kingdom, they just said, okay, man, you just take it. You just take it. But uh, one of the things why they did it, Chamberlain, the UK Premier Minister, he didn't want another war in Europe because the World War One was devastating and it happened like literally 20 years around 20-ish years ago, you know. So for him, he would rather give Hitler whatever he wants just to maintain the peace, you know. But as Winston Churchill said, to get the peace, you have to prepare for the war or something like that. Don't judge me, guys. I'm just
Anyway, we're gonna give you what you want.
trying to remember.
Really? Yeah. Just like that? Yep. What's the catch? Just sign this piece of paper promising you won't invade the rest of Czechoslovakia. Okay. Then Chamberlain returned home victorious, waving his signed piece of paper in the
Yeah,
air.
remember
declaring
there's
France to be
even a
voted
photo
and
of it, how he
continuing
like
peace, but the statue of
exits
Chamberlain
the
was on
plane with
every
this paper in his hand.
Celebrate Chamberlain Day. Hitler's invading the rest of Czechoslovakia. What? He's invading the rest of Czechoslovakia. Oh. You lied to me. What do you expect? I'm Hitler. Not to be outdone, Mussolini also wanted to get in on the action. He thought to himself, isn't there a not yet
Man,
colonized
such
nation
impression,
somewhere
such a
so
nice impression
underdeveloped
by
that
him.
people would be defending themselves against our tanks with literal bows and arrows and wooden spears? Oh, there is? Fantastic. And so he took it. Italy also wanted to control the entrance to the Adriatic Sea, so they occupied Albania. Then, in another incident which was maybe staged by the Japanese, gunfire was exchanged by
Maybe.
Japanese and Chinese troops at the Marco Polo Bridge, and the Japanese launched yet another invasion against China. They swept through Beijing and Shanghai, and then advanced through the Yangtze Valley to China's then capital, Nanking.
Japanese didn't
against the Chinese people.
treat Chinese very
Back in
well.
Europe,
They
Germany and
treated
Italy
them
made their
very bad,
relationship status
very bad.
official by signing the
during
Pact
this
of
war.
Steel. Then Hitler turned his eyes
Also
towards Poland,
Koreans,
and they hated
they
Polish
treated them
corridors,
bad
splitting
also.
Germany in two. At this point, the Allies really had to put their foot down, and they warned him that an invasion of Poland would mean war. Hitler had planned to continue his advance eastward, but he didn't want to end up fighting a war on two fronts. So for now, he made an alliance with Stalin, saying, how about we both invade Poland and split it between the two of us, and I definitely won't not refrain from not betraying you sometime in the future. Sounds good. This new alliance stunned the West. On the 1st of September 1939, German troops entered Poland, and Britain and France declared war on Germany.
The World War
The
One
Poles
started.
fought hard,
World
but
War
they were
Two.
no match for
My
the two
apologies.
giants crashing down on them from either side. Then came a period known as the Phony War, where everyone just sort of sat around not doing much.
Yeah,
had launched
France
a
didn't
small
pull the
invasion into
trigger.
Saarland, but they
Didn't
maintained
want
mostly
like
defensive positions, and after a while
full-scale
decided
war.
to just turn around and call it a day. Speaking of France, the French were still super proud of their victory in World War I, and they hadn't really moved on from it. They still used horses, they dispatched messages by motorbike instead of using radio. Orders from the commander-in-chief were usually pretty vague.
Do
and the
drills and
troops were
stuff.
rarely inspected. They built a line of defenses along their German border, but didn't bother
Man.
extending it all the way to the Channel, and they wouldn't launch artillery strikes against Germany out of fear of being retaliated against. In a war, they didn't want to attack the enemy. And at first the UK wasn't much better. Chamberlain still naively hoped that the war could be ended diplomatically. Instead of bombing raids, the RAF dropped propaganda leaflets over German
And
cities,
unfortunately,
which
it
warned air marshals
failed.
likely
It
didn't
failed a lot. This propaganda move from the UK, because in Germany people were so happy that Germany is getting back good old glory that it had before, you know, and they were very proud of the government. They were proud of the overall things happening. So this propaganda was zero efficient, you know.
nothing but provide the continent with toilet paper for the duration of the war. They also only sent 200,000 men to France, while the French had mobilized millions. Both Britain and France wanted to avoid a repeat of the First World War, and so they wanted to keep the war as far from home as possible. So they turned their eyes north, towards Norway. Neutral Sweden was exporting iron ore to Germany through neutral Norway, so the Allies asked them if they could please stop exporting iron ore
The
to Germany,
lads.
but this request was refused. Then the Soviet Union attacked Finland, so the Allies said, how about we land troops in Norway and move them across Sweden to go help out your good pal Finland, and along the way maybe take control of all your armfields. But Norway and Sweden still said no, so the UK mined the waters around Norway to
By the way, that was a big downfall for Soviet Union attacking Finland. Well, in some sense, because they show to the world that their army is very weak and that they cannot even win small Finland. And one of the reasons why Soviet Union attacked Finland was they said, sorry guys, your borders are too close to St. Petersburg. We need to get the borders farther just to maintain our security, you know. Of course, Finnish people declined their request to push the borders towards the Finnish side, and basically the war started. And then Hitler saw that Soviet Union army is very weak. They cannot win Finland, and then one of the reasons he said thought, okay, we could win Soviet Union
Hitler
with a
realized what the
blitzkrieg.
Allies were up to, and he quickly moved to secure his supply of iron ore. He launched an invasion through Denmark into Norway.
Man, I
The Allies
forgot
rushed to
about
land
this
troops at
one.
key ports along the
Always
coast,
it
but
was
Germany had taken control of Norway's airfield, and their air
taken-
superiority decided the fight. The Allies
Occupied
had to retreat.
by
After this
Germany.
slightly embarrassing
Forgot
failure,
about
Chamberlain
this one.
resigned and was replaced with Winston Churchill, who had a slightly
V for
different approach
victory,
to dealing
ladies and
with the
gentlemen.
Germans. Hitler's overall
Not this
strategy
one,
was
but
similar
this
to
one.
Germany's First World War strategy: attack France, defeat France, knocking out the UK in the process, then turn on the Soviet Union and win the war. During the Phoney War, the Allies had given Hitler time to prepare his forces. Now he was ready to attack. The Allies had wanted to place troops in Belgium, but Belgium had refused, and in a move that surprised pretty much no one, Hitler launched an invasion to get around France's defenses. The Allies charged into Belgium at full speed to meet the German invasion head-on, and it looked like a repeat of the First World War was coming. But this time, Hitler had a trick up his sleeve: blitzkrieg. As the Germans advanced, they sent thousands of refugees westward, slowing down the Allies. Then, to the south, the French had left the Ardennes, an area full of hills and forests, pretty underdefended because they thought it was naturally impenetrable. Well, the Germans were about to penetrate it with everything they had. They smashed 50 Wehrmacht divisions through, and
Also, Germans had a bit of a cheat code. They were using these small pills that helped soldiers not to sleep for at least for 24 hours. So some soldiers didn't sleep for 3-4 days, and they were just rolling with the tanks and through these Ardennes forests. And the French were surprised. They were like, man, how do they did it without us noticing that? So man, that was like very smart move. Not the best thing for the health though.
The Germans squeezed in from all sides, taking out France's best armies and nearly wiping out the British too. But they managed to make a desperate
Dunkirk.
last-minute escape.
There's
from
even a movie
Dunkirk,
about
with
that,
British civilian
Dunkirk,
ships even making the
with
perilous
Tom
journey to
Hardy.
bring their young men home. With most of the French forces depleted, the Germans breezed through, taking Paris, and France fell. What the Germans couldn't do in World War I, Hitler had done just like that. Hitler hoped that with the fall of France, the UK would also lose hope and sue for peace. But quite annoyingly, it didn't, and he needed to secure the Western Front. So he tried to force them into submission with mind games. The UK were now all alone, and Hitler wanted to emphasize that. First of all, just before France fell, Italy finally declared war on the Allies, making the UK's situation...
Italy was just like checking out the situation and looking where the wind is gonna go. So if it's favorable to go to war, we're gonna go to war. If it's not favorable, we won't go to war, and that's it. It's just like Mussolini was like a snake, literally like a snake.
Even worse. Next, instead of just occupying all of France, Hitler occupied the coastal areas for defense, but allowed France to continue its existence as a German puppet state. This way, it looked like the UK's old ally had decided to switch sides. Hitler also hoped that the UK wouldn't attack any of her old allies' navy bases or colonies in Africa, giving Hitler an extra line of defense to the south. But the UK made sure to respond to this by sailing down to France's navy base in Algeria and wrecking a bunch of ships. So have at it.
Yeah, they destroyed France's navy, basically, because they were afraid that Germany is gonna take over those ships and they're gonna use those ships against UK.
Laying down plans for an invasion of Great Britain. Before German troops could land on British soil, he would first need air and naval superiority across the Channel. Waves of German bombers came, while the completely outnumbered RAF worked bravely around the clock in an attempt to quell the German attacks. At first, the Luftwaffe targeted British ports and coastal facilities. Then it attacked RAF bases, crippling the RAF's ability to defend the nation. And it looked like Hitler's Great British Invasion was coming. But then, Churchill ordered a small, pretty insignificant bombing raid over Berlin. It didn't do much damage, but Hitler was furious, and he immediately ordered the Luftwaffe to refocus its attacks on civilian targets in London. Children were sent off to the countryside, away from their parents to avoid danger, and frequent trips to air raid shelters became a daily occurrence. But British...
Also, there was this thing that Hitler had spies in the UK that were sending information about where to drop the bombs, but he didn't know that English intelligence already have caught those spies and made those spies send Hitler the wrong information. So Germans were because of this, Germans were dropping the bombs in the wrong places a lot of times, and these bombs didn't land on London. Of course, a lot of bombs land on London, but many bombs didn't.
These people have balls of steel. This refocusing on London.
That's for sure, man. Guys, if you live somewhere where there is no war, you should be grateful. This is the thing you should be grateful, because war is always destruction, death, and sadness. You know, like so. Be grateful that it's peaceful. You know.
Kind of shot himself in the foot there. Just the foot for now. Finally, the Luftwaffe sent one massive all-out attack on London, and the RAF successfully repelled it, destroying many of the German aircraft and placing air superiority firmly in British hands. Hitler's invasion had to be postponed, but the bombing of British cities continued for some time.